Hi everyone, Tashitalik. I'm Domal Hamu.
Many Buddhist leaders and Buddhist dignitaries and very high profile senior Buddhist monks have been invited to grace this occasion. India is the ideal place to organize, to stage this grand summit, because India is the home for Buddhist philosophy. Buddhism was born in India. So we can call India the land of the Buddha, has all the qualifications to organize this event. And Buddhism is a way of life, can be a way of life to anybody from any religious background. Also, Buddhism teaches compassion, non-violence, and peace. So, with this global Buddhist summit, we believe this will bring peace to the whole world. May the Noble Triple Gem bless you. Thank you.
The Indian Prime Minister is going to address it. What do you have to say about that?
Okay. I really like to hear from him, the Prime Minister of India, that the Indian government will continue to support the Buddhist religion as a whole, but in particular Buddhist education in this country by supporting the idea of setting up first and second and third, if possible, the Buddhist university full-fledged. I mean, not only mixing with other faculty, because Buddhism has very broad knowledge.
Land of the Buddha, and I think, I'm very glad that the government of India and also IBC is taking a leading role in promoting these things. And I hope that this is not the first summit. My name is Bhikkhu Nandisena. I'm the abbot of the Dhamma Vihara Monastery in Mexico. The Dhamma Vihara Monastery in Mexico has been already 25 years. I went to Mexico from the United States and we established this monastery, and we have been teaching the Buddha's words during all this time. And Buddhism is helping the Mexican and also the Spanish-speaking people, because the Buddha's teachings are universal, are eternal. The people who teach Buddhism needs to have these two things: know the teachings well, practice the teaching well, and also know the culture and the country well. So in this way, I think we can bring Buddhism everywhere.
Thank you so much.
What is your good name?
Dolma.
Dolma?
Dolma Hamu.
Dolma Slavo?
Yeah.
Slavo.
Hamu.
Oh, Dolma.
Dolma Hamu.
Okay.
Oh, my question is
Yeah.
that in today's world that is filled with conflicts, wars, and more, how do you think Buddhism can play a pivotal role in today's world
Yes.
that is filled with so much hatred, like I mentioned?
Yes. Well, there have always been conflicts, but there don't have to be. There are what are called Buddha worlds, Buddha Kshetra, Sanjay Jishing, where there are no conflicts. Except, people are just in sort of garden, like heaven, almost. Although that's not nirvana, but there are such possible worlds. And in a world like this, which is of conflict, is because the beings are not developed enough, not educated enough. And Buddhism is a system of education primarily. A religion kind of grew around Buddhism, the way you define a religion. People thinking that something is good and having a kind of faith in it. But actually, Buddha never said that faith could save you from suffering alone. It has to be knowledge that saves you from suffering. You have to understand yourself, and you have to understand the world. So Buddhism is very necessary in a world of conflict because it educates people to be able to overcome the conflict. And so it isn't that Buddhism doesn't fit in the world. If Buddhism as a system of education doesn't exist in the world, then there would be nothing but conflict. Because people who are uneducated about themselves, not necessarily just some information, but educated about what the self is like and what relationships with others is about and what the reality of the world is. People who are uneducated about that and have some strange theory about it, they will inevitably cause trouble and they'll be in conflict with each other and it will be worse and worse. Buddha is not a god. Buddha doesn't create the world, right? Yes. In fact, Buddha discovers the world is essentially uncreated, which is very confusing to people. So we won't necessarily go into that. But all that, who gave such a good talk? One of the lamas in the conference gave a very good talk that people, I think His Holiness also mentioned that people believe the world is some way which it isn't. And they believe that they are some way which they aren't. So they put themselves in a bad situation where they think they are some sort of absolute different from everything else. And everything else is absolutely different from them, really and really so. And therefore they're in an impossible situation where you, Dharma Lama, are on one side and the whole world is on the other side. And sometimes like your mom loves you, your dad loves you, maybe your cousins, maybe if you have a husband or friends, they love you. But then that can change, you know. And then there's so many people who don't necessarily like us, but they don't know us. And so we sort of, it's a losing situation if it's a single person versus the whole world, right? So, but actually, the world is not really that different. We're all interrelated. There's some difference, but it isn't anything absolute. We shouldn't exaggerate. So therefore, then we can get along better with things when we know, His Holiness said, Tenjung, you know, dependently originated. Or I like to use the word, the scientific word, relativity. We're all relatives. You know? Everyone is a relative. Like the Native Americans in America, in ceremonies, they say, Oya tsuki miyasun, which means all beings are my relatives. Sort of like Marsheva in Tibetan, the practice of seeing everyone as having been your mother in a previous life. And that makes things kind of more friendly and we can do better. Now, when people are like, for example, Putin invaded Ukraine very violently and completely unnecessarily. And that's the example, because Ukrainians were not bothering him. You know, they were just wanted to be free themselves, you know. And they were a separate country recognized in the UN and everything. But he wanted to say they didn't exist. And it was just Russia, and if they had say they exist, he's going to destroy them, which is crazy. But that comes from the fact that he thinks he's separate, and they're separate, and he wants to own them and take them onto his side, you know? And then he's willing to destroy them to own them. Well, then what is he owning? A destroyed people. You know? So it shows that people, when they exaggerate, now people say also there's another wrong thing. People say that the Buddhists have no self, and that is completely wrong. But definitely everybody has a self. Dalai Lama himself, we say Dalai Lama himself, he says, I myself. He's referring to himself. But what he doesn't have is an absolute self, or what we call intrinsically real self. He has a kind of relative self, and it changes. Young Dalai Lama is a little different from old Dalai Lama. If Putin knew that, he would say, "Oh, well, I can go visit Ukraine without a visa even. They'll let me come visit. I can even buy a house there." Then he would not be so, he doesn't have to destroy it to somehow own it in some absolute way.
My next question is,
Yes.
could you share us your experience attending Global Buddhist Summit? Your
Share my experience?
Yes, sir.
Well, I've had a wonderful time. Everyone has been very kind, and I've met many old friends, and I've made some new friends. And I just wish my wife was here with me, and that would make it more fun, and she would be meeting people. And I'm missing them at home. We've been married for 56 years, so we sort of used to being with each other. You know, that's all. No big deal, but it was nice to do that. But otherwise, I love it, and of course, it's always a great honor and a joy to see His Holiness, even for a short time. And I've known him now since 1964. So next year it will be 60 years. And it's been very, very lucky for me, you know, really lucky. We're old friends. And actually, he told me, I met him in October, I had an audience with him, and he told me that we've been working together for many lifetimes, and we were going to continue to work for many. So there's no retiring even in the next life. And well, I enjoyed also talking to the Buddhists, everyone, about really looking at Buddha as a scientist. Because, you know, it's not good among the world religions. We love Buddha so much, you know, but it's not good to say, well, Buddha's better than Jesus, or Buddha's better than Krishna, or Buddha's better than Confucius, or something. It's not good, but Buddha's better than Muhammad. That's not good to say that. You know, in religions, between religions, His Holiness never would want to say that. That's why he doesn't want to convert people to Buddhism who are not Buddhists. But as a science, as what is reality, and talking to the secular scientists, is there such a thing as former and future life? How does the psychology of the mind really change? What is the nature of having identity and transformation of identity, and all this kind of process? Buddhism has a very profound psychology, a wonderful physics about lack of any absolute, the absoluteness of any deity. They're also relative beings, and a wonderful biology with karma, and an ethical theory, a biology theory that fits with ethics. In a way, Darwin does too, in the sense of the survival of the fittest, the slogan that comes from Darwin, which is very similar to the Buddha's karma theory. But the thing is, Darwin is forced to be a materialist because of the Western dogma about material, you know, no mind, no spirit. And so it becomes impersonal. It's the species that changes, not the individual. And the individual's change are irrelevant to the species change. And that's actually not logical. Every individual is part of the species. So if the individual changes, then that's changing the species. You know, they like the human beings. So Buddha's karma theory of biology is that the individual's actions affect the individual's future, which we see in a single life, right? Like you, Tramalamo, go to school, you learn this, you learn how to do media, you ask questions. Professors talk too much, but you're being polite. And then because you do that, you become more knowledgeable, you meet more people, you're able to ask different questions, you understand things, and you change. And so that's the karma at work, you know? And that's biology, actually. And then the mind, therefore, becomes a force in biological development. And then that fits with the ethical theory of the tenfold body, speech, and mind, you know? Migewe Lam Chu and Gewe Lam Chu. And it fits with the tenfold path of positive and negative evolution, you know, right?
Thank you so much, sir. It's so pleasant to have you here.
Okay, no more question?
That's it. I only have 2 questions to ask.
Was that 2 questions?
Yeah.
Well, good. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Dolma.
Actually, I wanted to ask about what do you think about Tibetan Buddhism?
Tibetan Buddhism is Buddhism originally came from India, because Lord Buddha spent maximum time of his life in India, nowadays known as Bihar and UP, right? And he gave the first sermon of the Four Noble Truths in Varanasi. And throughout his life, he spent in India and taught the teachings until he passed away. The last teaching he taught was in Kushinagar. So Tibetan Buddhism was brought to Tibet in around the 7th century. The great Indian master, Nalanda master, Shantarakshita, he brought as the advice from Padmasambhava, because Padmasambhava was a great tantric practitioner, and he realized that there should be also a scholar in India. So he advised the Tibetan king to bring Shantarakshita, and from that onwards, Buddhism spread to Tibet. And after a few centuries, the great Indian Nalanda master, Master Atisha, he came. So Tibetan Buddhism is basically a pure Nalanda tradition. So this is the brief background of the Tibetan Buddhism. Yes.
My next question is, in the world that is filled with conflicts, wars, and so many miserable things happening around, how do you think Buddhism can play a pivotal role in what's going on around this world?
Yes. Yes. There's so much problem in this world. Buddhism teaches love and compassion, and all these problems is due to lack of love and compassion. If there is maximum love and compassion, I think there is no problem in this world. So promotion of love and compassion, which is taught in the Buddhism, in the teachings, every religion teaches, but Buddhism speaks very thoroughly on that, this matter. So I think if we can promote love and compassion, then there will be no problem in this world.
So beautiful answer. And my last question is, so what do you think about Global Buddhist Summit?
Oh, yeah. Global Buddhist Summit is a historic event, I think. And the government of India and the Culture Ministry has taken so much interest and put a lot of resource. And this is the time where this is an opportunity to bring all the Buddhist scholars, teachers, and most revered monks together. And it's a big get-together event. I think this is an enormous event, and I think through this event, I think we will reach out to many people and promotion of Buddhism, and I think this is very beneficial. Yes, so I really rejoice this event. Yes. Thank you.
Tadi tanda gyagai ki kasa Delhi nala Global Buddhist Summit se Genji Namgyal so the chimodi rodi yore. Tadi zo gyagai ki selu na modi cho ta any ta zo International Buddhist Confederation se kunjugo dila tadi na di so the chimodi so bare. Dinala alam gyakap sumju ji gi dinala tu yuke. Tadi gi migyo so di tanda zambuling nala any challenges was your something like Saturday any math to get any Takasuri ethics maybe sounded more the did some Zambuli Lakana Jitay any Gahagi Pata to Sambala any Zambuling the Kimzang Chilata Chetsa Tadi Kimzangi Kanalji Dorchagure that the Kana di Seagi Chedu any Tab Yabochi Lam Sambochi ene tomo chumnen degi tembe sung tamazugi sena namchö sigyoya ene di sung na ne ene cham zeba ingje thongne khandes se gore se ta zo di chene ene ta di gyagagi buku dawji sone de kotik na re.
That's Tujana, any gala in the New Year in the Global Buddhist Summit, gala attention, any gala in also those conditions.
Di ngone chanange pe hansans so gyagi yelrot lodu sambala ene first Buddhist Council to bachumnen de ene kunyana la debe shela ene gyagi yabu ajashatrugi ene goting name first Buddhist Council sorwa ene tadi do council tango yiwa subashiba se tadi yang yun jingko jigi shela ene tanda gyagi silon budigi godisone yang first global Buddhist conference dila 39 di mane hansa gi keja jiredu tadigi ene zambuling la ene ta gyagi goti ne ene matsu gi vishwa guru lagi da ta gyagi ene zambuling gi goti dawoche ne ene zambuling la cham sewa ningje gi thone ene kangai de sosia gi thablam pha lamdon na ya ta chapchi ene gyaga nalo la ina ya ene nangchö da jiglam de so pe tarboje da ene yago soyagi di thablam so tinde kashi do di ene ngimangi gi ringla ta khasang gyaga gi sinu chogi ene di kochen na ore ene diri tongsa yo jinu bu chok de chibu kating kya ne kungi choknun na ore je za ene diri khonsa chogi kalug lamdo nangdu chambala ya so ene ningje shizun che ne ene cham ningje chwa me belam shizun che ne nangchola nanchogi practice che gom ya ore ene manchugi di laglen tal le se so kundugi kalu phesong ta diyang ene tengsa zambuli la kangai thedu zambala ta di dila zombe ene mina tajen khashi chiko mare zambuli yong la ene kundugi boguji drink na pare ta di pe keze kya chimole de gyore ene ta zambuli la di nadu zambala ene dina la gyalkhap lam sumju jigi ene kheba da ene suluche kha da ene ambassador da spiritual master da sangma dinala chodu zambala kungi dirindila ka phebate ene zambulingi gyalkap chambu sumjujila ka pheba na chikpa dawre tadi digi impact digi khedi pe misi chimbo lebyada ene maumba ne ya ta karsore zamling shide tuye gi chedu tablam sangboji da yakshoji dingi source
Tujana.
So this had been very inspiring and important subject that we have been engaged for 2 days from 20th from yesterday and today, and I feel it's very appropriate and it's timely to, if not late, timely to discuss on this summit, and when we have several discussions on what we think of the global crisis and all this, the conversations, the dialogues we have had was very important, and I feel this was very timely.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, can I ask your name and where you're from?
My name is Tashi Zangmo, Dr. Tashi Zangmo. I work for the Bhutan Nuns Foundation in Bhutan as an executive director to educate, help educate and uplift the well-being of the nuns in Bhutan.
That's so sweet.
सबसे पहले तो मैं भारत सरकार को और विशेष तौर से मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कल्चर को धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं कि पहली बार भारत में ग्लोबल बुद्धिस्ट समिट का आयोजन नई दिल्ली में किया है, और मैं समझता हूं कि जिस तरह से इसमें पार्टिसिपेशन रहा हमारे तकरीबन दुनिया भर के 30 देशों से जितने भी विद्वान हैं, न सिर्फ बुद्धिस्ट विद्वान बल्कि और भी सब यहाँ पर आए और इसमें सम्मिलित हुए। और मैं इसलिए ये ज़रूरी समझता हूँ क्योंकि बौद्ध धर्म की उत्पत्ति भारत से हुई है और भगवान गौतम बुद्ध का जन्म स्थल भी भारत है, और होना ये चाहिए कि जितने भी पूरे विश्व भर में बुद्धिस्ट कंट्रीज हैं उनके साथ भारत का हर लिहाज से स्पिरिचुअली हो, इकोनॉमिकली हो, पॉलिटिकली हो, उनके साथ अच्छा रिश्ता होना एक बौद्ध धर्म को लेकर एक अच्छा रिश्ता कायम हो सकता है। और मैं देखता हूं कि भारत सरकार ने जिस ये बुद्धिस्ट समिट का यहाँ पर ऑर्गेनाइज किया, उस दिशा में एक महत्वपूर्ण कदम हो सकता है।
आज से कोई तकरीबन 20 साल पहले इंटरनेशनल बुद्धिस्ट कॉन्फेडरेशन का क़याम हुआ यहाँ पे, और इसका मकसद ही यही था कि जितने भी दुनिया भर में बुद्धिस्ट कंट्रीज है उसके साथ भारत का राजनीतिक दृष्टि से हो, इकोनॉमिक दृष्टि से हो और स्पिरिचुअली हो, क्योंकि बुद्धा ने यहाँ से प्रचार शुरू किया और अभी तो भारत में बौद्ध धर्म के अनुयायियों की संख्या कम है, लेकिन दुनिया के अनेकों देशों में बौद्ध धर्म बहुत प्रसारित हुआ है और पूरे बहुत सारे ऐसे देश हैं जहाँ बौद्ध धर्म के मानने वालों की संख्या ज़्यादा है। तो बौद्ध धर्म एक ये माध्यम बन सकता है भारत सरकार का उन देशों के साथ स्पिरिचुअली, इकोनॉमिकली, पॉलिटिकली हमारा रिश्ता अच्छा होने का, और इसी दिशा में ये मैं एक बहुत बड़ा प्रयास देखता हूँ। और मुझे पूरा उम्मीद है आने वाले सालों में जिस तरह से इस 2023 के ग्लोबल बुद्धिस्ट समिट में 30 देशों के विद्वान और जितने भी बौद्ध नेता हैं वो सम्मिलित हुए हैं, तो उसको देखते हुए हमें इसमें कोई शक नहीं है कि आने वाले वर्षों में भारत जितने भी बुद्धिस्ट कंट्रीज हैं उनका लीड करेंगे और बौद्ध धर्म को माध्यम बनाकर शायद भारत का उनके साथ रिश्ता आने वाले सालों में बहुत अच्छा बनेगा, यही हम उम्मीद करते हैं इस समिट से।
Thank you.
It's a very relevant event today that really is so important to take place, and we all should really deeply rejoice on this occasion where this global Buddhist summit is happening, where there are wars, economic crisis, conflicts, and fear, anxiety everywhere nowadays. It's so full of fears everywhere, and I think this is a wonderful event that has taken place, and I think we should really be grateful to the government of India for organizing and sponsoring such event, which is organized by IBC, International Buddhist Confederation, as I'm myself being the global envoy, one of the global envoy for it. And the other attraction of this whole event is like His Holiness. Even to talk about it, it gives me goosebumps. I mean, I feel so fortunate that I had the moment to listen to his teachings and right in front of me, so closely. And that is a deep achievement. Like, I don't have the right word to express this, but beyond that, of course, all these venerables coming from all over the world, people who are into Buddha's teaching, follow on the path of Buddha's teaching, whose concern is about how to propagate Buddha Dharma around the world, where everyone is so full of agony, and to pacify that agony in every individual on this earth. I think the right answer is to understand and to apply Buddha's teaching in everyone's life. And I personally want to say thank you to IBC and then the government of India for such an event and making me part of this event. I'm so grateful for this, and the merit that it has accumulated. May it be the source of all the peace and prosperity all over the world, and all the wars and conflicts should be pacified soon.
Thank you so much, Anila.
I'm Choeying Rinpoche, and right now I'm here in Delhi. So we have this Global Buddhist Summit, and here I think more than 30 countries from all over the world participate in this conference, and it's a beautiful conference that we are exchanging all this, our different views and different culture, and how that the Buddhist knowledge can put into action and to change, to bring a change in society, and especially that whatever right now going in this world, from climate change to all the way to war and individual suffering. So for me, the Buddhism, I think it's a beautifully translated in Tibetan, we call it like a Nangpa. So Nangpa means you have to look inside, instead of looking outside the cause of the problem. So why I'm saying this, regarding this world problem, because see, when we talk about the world problem, doesn't matter the war happening or the conflict in family. So everything starts from within. Once you start to kind of tame your mind, once you start to like a kind of what do you call the activate your inner peace and inner joy and inner compassion. So it's once you change and slowly the other person will start to change, then the world will becoming a peace itself. But nowadays the problem is we are not working with our mind, and we are just talking about the world problem, and we are making it worse while we are complaining, And while we are complaining, so we are unhappy and we are angry and we are kind of, that all the negative emotion arises. So somehow that we are making the things more complicated, So I would really suggest for all of us, that how to apply the Buddha teaching is, I think, start from each one of us. We start to work with our mind. For that, you have to learn how to meditate, And once you start to meditating, so you will kind of start to realizing the inner conflict. So once you can solve the inner conflict, I guarantee you that you will see the world in a different perspective. So each one of us, if we can solve the inner conflict, I guarantee you the world will be automatically or naturally will go back to the natural state, which is peaceful and which is harmony and which is the joyful and the compassion and loving kindness. And that is the teaching of Buddha, which this morning His Holiness the Dalai Lama was also emphasizing on this. Compassion is the essence of the Buddha's teaching. And based on that, so we will bring the world peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Rinpoche, how was your experience attending Global Buddhist Summit?
Yeah, this is, for me, meeting with great masters from all over the world. And this is just, for me, it's a blessing, to hear from many great scholars and great meditation masters. And that's kind of, for me, I come here to learn and come here to kind of, receive the blessing from all the monks from all over the world. And I can see that this is the kind of united of all the Buddhists from all over the world. And I think that will bring a big change in future Buddhism, I believe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
These are the ceilings that we have found from Vadnagar excavation. So total 42 specimens are there, out of which 36 specimens have been found from that circular structure that we are calling stupa now. Okay, so the inscription on the ceiling says Namo Sarvagya. Namo Sarvagya means like Naman to the all-knowing Buddha. Okay, and this is the same word that has been used in Devni Muri casket as well, to refer to Buddha again.